Sydney Hobart Yacht Race Village here in Hobart, and at the moment we are watching live pictures of Law Connect, one of the front runners in the race now in Bass Strait, the 100-foot Super Maxi defending Lion Honours champion, and on the right hand side is the double-handed Crux Racing. So what a contrast, a 100-footer and basically a 30-footer, Peter Shipway, currently heading south towards Hobart.
Yes, both in a starboard tack going out to sea. Law Connect very close to the lead. She's only 4 miles behind Master Lock Comanche. They're just over halfway. That's the news from the leaders. But poor little Crux, she's only out off Ulladulla, and she's got a long way to go. She's a Sparkman and Stevens 34, S&S 34, sister ship to the 1969 race winner, Morning Cloud. She was the last S&S 34 ever built in Western Australia, launched as Blondie, and Morning Cloud won this race with Edward Heath as the skipper, and who went on later to become Prime Minister of Great Britain. So a massive contrast in boats, but the conditions look okay. They'd be cold and there'd be a bit of water around, but not too extreme. Just looking at the weather, Gabo Island's got southwest 23 to 28 knots, but Montague Island, where Crux is approaching, they got south-southeast at about 28 knots.
Peter, I'm sure some of our viewers are probably getting a little queasy at the moment, particularly on the smaller Crux. The co-skippers Carlos Ados in his 3rd Rolex Sydney Hobart and Peter Grayson in his 7th. Carlos purchased the boat back in 2018, but just some amazing historic pictures here. I think this is the first time ever, certainly in our coverage, where we've seen live coverage from the racecourse with the biggest and one of the smallest, the double-handed entry Crux, the S&S 34. As Peter mentioned, classic design and built in 2008. Now let's just see, Peter Shipway, where Law Connect is at the moment in Bass Strait, chasing hard with Master Lock Comanche.
Well, there they are. They're well into Bass Strait, but they're very close together, only 4 miles apart, Law Connect and Master Lock Comanche, and you can see the course that Law Connect has taken. It's mostly parallel to the other leading group. They went west of the rum line early, got into the right close to Green Cape, and then as they punched out into Bass Strait, the breeze went more from the west to southwest into the south, and they're now battling into very, very strong headwinds directly to Tasmania. So they're standing out on a long starboard tack, waiting for the relief to come. When the breeze finally goes from the south to the southeast, they can flop over on port and then make a beeline for Tasman Island.
Just while we're looking at the course, a lot of those 100-footers have stuck very close to the coast, west of the rum line. But you look at Law Connect speed at the moment, Peter Shipway, 12.6 knots there in the bottom corner. And when you compare that to last year, at this point last year, they were probably doing over 30 knots in Bass Strait because the breeze was coming from the other direction.
Well, in these strong winds, it might sound silly, but they're trying to probably slow the boats down a bit because they're slamming and banging into these waves, especially the maxis. If you push them too hard and falling off the waves, damage could occur. So it's a balance. It's a real balance. And this is where seamanship comes in, to slow the boats down, to know how much to slow them down, but still to keep racing. So it's a real fine balance. And then about 4 miles, how long before we see 9 miles behind is Scallywag and Lucky. They are basically together. And then about 30 miles astern of the leader, Master Lock Comanche, comes Palm Beach 11.
We'll have a look at that in a bit more detail in a few moments, but just here's a little teaser as to what's coming up in our Day 2 afternoon program from the Race Village here in Hobart. Just behind us, by the way, is King's Pier, empty at the moment. That's the Royal Yacht Club of Tasmania, actually, but there's probably a few old Sydney Hobart boats there, Peter. A wonderful club, of course. They are the host finishing club. But coming up, we have Midnight Rambler, a special feature with Ed Saltis. What a great sailor! His 43rd Sydney Hobart Pete, winner of that race in 1998. We also have a couple of Tasmanian boats, Ambition, Chris Dare, and the X Factor, which has a very intriguing mix, a mixed crew there, which you'll be fascinated to hear about. And also Evie Hasseldine will be visiting the Helly Hansen apparel, what we call it, boutique. It's certainly high-class wear, all sorts of coats and
Fashion gear.
Fashion gear, that's the word I was looking for.
You're the fashion
High
guru.
fashion, Peter. And that will be coming up just during our program here today. But let's now have a look at the retirements, because we've had 10 retirements in the race so far. We started with 128 yesterday on Boxing Day, and out already Arwen, who is representing Queensland, a broken forestay. Hutchie's Yeah Baby, headstay damage. Inukshuk, one of the double-handers, out early. Trouble and Strife had engine issues. White Noise, rigging. Wild Thing 100, one of the 5 very competitive Grand Prix Super Maxis out of the race. That's a huge disappointment. We saw the interview with Grant Warrington this morning. I think he's up to 33 Rolex Sydney Hobarts, but he didn't want it to finish that way, but he's out of the race and heading back to Sydney. Troubadour had some illness on board. Roaring 40, similar problems, and a big disappointment for Rob Appleyard from the Royal Freshwater Bay Yacht Club. They're out with equipment issues, and Mazu Denali's little helper had battery issues. So all of those retirements, Peter, and the more recent one was Moneypenny, and we've had some footage of Moneypenny at sea with Rob Appleyard, and all was going so well for them, but I believe they lost something overboard.
Yeah, I think their life raft went overboard, and of course they couldn't continue on because they weren't fit for purpose then with the life raft gone, so that's a huge disappointment. I presume the boat's okay, but without a life raft, as I say, you've got to turn for home, which is very, very sad. And Western Australia still only one winner in this race, and that was 50 years ago with Rampage. And Rob Appleyard and his team were putting up a pretty good effort in Moneypenny, but it's all for nothing now. They're on their way home.
Yes, Rampage was designed by the late Ben Lexon, and Peter Packer, the skipper, conducted the first cochlear ear transplant in Western Australia. He was a famous surgeon, no longer with us unfortunately, but a famous victory for Western Australia. But also we had a report from Antipodes, Brad Kellett, who's doing his 33rd in a row. So he's going to challenge for 50 in a row, I reckon. He's still got a lot of years ahead of him. But they also found something that had been lost overboard, Peter.
Yeah, I believe it came off Scallywag, I think. There it is.
Explain it. A Dan buoy that has come off
yeah.
That's a man overboard situation.
It's a pole that goes up over... extends upwards, of course, so that it's easy to see if a boat's going up and over the waves, and a man can swim to that, or if possible, and you'd throw that overboard. If a man went overboard, it inflates, a little red flag on the top, so it's a little bit easier to see in a big seaway, but it's still very hard to see, and you can see some big waves there behind that. Yeah,
Brad Kellett, the son of the great Dave Kellett, who's had such a huge influence on this race as a former CYCA Commodore and life member, and I think he's up to something like 46 or 48 involvements in this great race. But certainly they must have been on a similar course to SHK Scallywag in Antipodes. Let's have a look at the Line Honours leaderboard now, and just quickly looking at that top order. It's Master Lock Comanche ahead of Law Connect from Scallywag Lucky, Palm Beach 11. In 6th place, Celestial V70 doing very well overall on handicap. URM Group, who never won overall in this big race. They're desperate. They've got the 5 Johnson brothers on board. No Limit, David Goetz, Callisto from New Zealand, and Smuggler, who's the reigning Audi Centre Sydney Blue Water Classic title holder. So let's go to the Rolex Hobart Yacht Race tracker now, and the standings in the Line Honours with Peter Shipway.
Yeah, well, Master Lock Comanche, as I mentioned earlier, she's just over halfway, 306 miles to go, and then just leading by about 4 miles to Law Connect, and then SHK Scallywag and Lucky together. They're about 9 miles adrift, and then a fair gap then to Palm Beach, about 30 plus miles astern of the leader, Master Lock Comanche. All on starboard tack, all going out to sea, waiting for the breeze to go from the southwest to the south and then into the southeast to give them some relief. They can flop over onto port and try and lay in towards the Tasmanian coast.
Let's have a look at one of the smaller boats, one of the double-handed entries, Toucan, and they're obviously experiencing very similar conditions to Crux. There's a bit of a seaway there, Peter. It's going to get steeper, most certainly, once they get towards Bass Strait. But how are they shaping up at the moment?
Well, pretty good on starboard tack, again going out to sea, and I think the whole ballpark now is that the southerly, the southwester has probably gone, it's gone into the south, it's going to the left, so you get out to the left, east of the rum line, and just wait for the breeze to change. And why it'll favour these little boats is because they will get the change first.
Well, yes, we caught up with the skipper of Toucan, and that happened at the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia at Rushcutters Bay.
Double-handed boats Toucan with Edward Curry-Hyde, owner and skipper, who completed his first Sydney Hobart yacht race last year in 2024 quite apprehensively after a pretty windy and wild Tollgate Islet race. Can you tell me about the story of how you got to last year's Rolex Sydney Hobart and the story with the two-handed class there?
Yeah, we did the full Blue Water series, and most of it had been uneventful, and then we got to the Tollgate Island. That had everything that we had heard about in terms of scary, things that were terrifying, but it was our first experience of getting really beaten up. And I have to say, the first 2 days, I really questioned my sanity. I think it was about 2 a.m. on the second night. I was sitting there going, I'm never going to do this again. And here I am.
Yeah, well, that's they really were beaten up, and he was very serious about giving it away.
Well, they've got 488 miles to go. He's got a lot of time to think about it. They're 37 miles east of Montague Island.
Yeah, well, they were first in the double-handed in the Noakes Gold Coast race this year, so they certainly have form on the board, and it's great to see them backing up.
Yeah, they're currently third in the double-handed division, so he's right in there.
Yeah, we spoke, Pete, we spoke of Midnight Rambler, Ed Saltis. He's just a legend in the race. Formerly from Sydney, Bill Saltis, his father, a famous Australian yachtsman. Tell us a bit about him.
Well, Bill was former Commodore of the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia, sailed many Hobart races, had a boat called Lassalus, beautiful timber boat, and then he updated to that to a Sparkman and Stevens design Meltemi that was well known, did many Hobart races, and Bill, a really good contributor to the success of the Cruising Yacht Club, treasurer, and then elevated to Commodore.
And from memory, you, in Love and War, beat them for a spot in the Admiral's Cup team, didn't you, in 1975?
Yeah, they were up for grabs, and they missed out, and we snuck in, but I think she was about the fourth or fifth boat. They took only three, and we were fortunate, and unfortunately Bill wasn't.
Well, Ed Saltis is based now here in Hobart, and he's been the dominant sailor here on the waters around the Derwent and up the east coast of Tasmania. And he says you never stop learning about this great race.
I think the most important thing is you're always learning, so anyone who reckons he's an expert and knows it all about the Sydney Hobart is kidding himself, because every year is new. That sounds unusual, but every year offers up something new. But having said that, there is experience, and you can get a feel for things to avoid and things to try to get into. The East Australian current's very important to get into that when it's flowing, and it is flowing this year. We've just come up from Hobart, and it's flowing. I shouldn't be giving away stuff for other boats, but it's flowing pretty hard, in quite close. So we have to get into that going south. The Devil's Triangle off Tasmania, which is the triangle to avoid getting in too close to Tasmania on any westerly airflow. There's a big wind shadow, and you've got to be out further to avoid that wind shadow. The last bus home from Tasman Light, as my father has said, leaves at 4 p.m, so you've got to catch that 4 p.m. bus from Tasman Island, otherwise you won't get home on the wind. You'll die somewhere off the Iron Pot and sit there for potentially 6 hours going nowhere, saying, why the hell am I doing this stupid race?
You've got Tony Ellis going down with you as tactician on Midnight Rambler this year for his 55th Hobart. What's it like having Tony on board with the experience he has?
It's great having Tony. I'm really pleased to have him aboard. He's been my hero literally all my life when I was a kid. They won the 71 Admiral's Cup on Ragamuffin. Tony spent most of his ocean racing life with Sid Fisher on various Ragamuffins, and there's no one with a better resume in my opinion. He's won the Fastnet race, Admiral's Cups, Hawaiian races. Having him on board now is, it's almost a dream come true to be sailing with the bloke that I've looked up to all my life. He's very talented. He's got amazing, experience of where to go, where not to go. Intuition about the race. He's pretty fit for his age, and he's blended in well to the crew. He's done 55, I've done 43, so that's almost a tonne just between us, so hopefully we've got the experience covered. But top bloke Tony, can't wait to sail with him.
Do you think anyone else is going to get up near your record, some younger?
Yeah, I'd say, well, for instance, Ed, doing the race with Ed this year, he's probably mid-60s. He's done 45, I think, this year. So, yeah, plenty of people around. Every record is there to be broken, and you know that.
Yeah, just amazing, Tony. And it's 44 then at the moment for Ed Saltz. Interesting comment there about the East Coast Current. He said, I don't want to give too much away, but I understand from Bill Lang, a meteorologist, tells me that East Coast Current goes all the way beyond Tasmania, Peter, and then turns left. Were you aware of that?
Well, yes, I was, but I don't go farther past Tasmania, so I've got no relevance.
But obviously, clearly the current is still going to play a big part. Yeah.
Well, it plays a part also that with the current coming south and the breeze going north, it makes for pretty rough water. You know, a counter current against the breeze, it can really stand the waves up. But looking at the models earlier at Boxing Day, there wasn't that much current. It does move, it changes quite dramatically. There was a little bit of current close to the shore near Montague Island, Jarvis Bay area, but after that there didn't appear to be too much. So the navigators would be very aware of it. But again, it's boat breaking weather. You've just got to manage that if you don't want too big a waves, or the boats will cause some serious, the waves will cause some serious damage. So it's a balancing act to look for more current, but to make sure the water is not super rough.
Well, let's look at another Tasmanian boat now, and a very competitive boat, Ambition, Chris Dare. And Chris has his son, Lockie, who's a very accomplished sailor. He's a jack of all trades, and he's going to keep his dad honest. So let's hear again from Evie.
This boat's all about trying to keep water out of downstairs. We've spent a lot of time waterproofing bits and pieces here and there, and we've still got some more modifications coming. As you can see immediately, it's a pretty open cockpit. 6 winches here, 7 including the pit, 2 primary winches that are driven by the pedestal here. We're constantly churning through grinders when we're going downwind. That's a hard job, not one I enjoy doing. It's a pretty straightforward boat on deck. If you go downstairs, there's a lot of systems, there's a lot of ropes going everywhere. We're lucky that we've got a couple of guys on board that are well versed on everything. If we break anything, we can usually solve it pretty quickly.
We may get a bit of a downwind right across Bass Strait, which, to be honest, on this boat will be a lot of fun. It certainly fits into the nice spot as to when the boat goes its best, that's for sure.
Yes, and outstanding young navigator Claire Costanzo is on board. And Peter, she's been travelling down from Sydney for the last 2 months just to get used to the Derwent and the east coast of Tasmania. But that's very exciting for her to be involved with Ambition.
Well, you can see that boat, very flush deck, very modern sort of boat, and they would really test out the waterproofing. It would be a very wet boat with no protection whatever for the crew on deck. So it'll be a big test for Claire and the crew, that's for sure. Chris is not going to get too much hard running across Bass Strait to suit that boat, but maybe, just maybe tomorrow, they might get some light air running.
And also, Lockie's dad, Chris, is very involved with the new AFL stadium to be built here in Hobart. He's on the project manager side and has a huge role. And his partner, Claire Cunningham, is also on board. That's Ambition. Well, I think we should hear from Evie now, because there's a very exciting innovation coming up as far as the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia is concerned. And it all is going to get underway in February 2026.
This February, the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia debuts a bold new offshore challenge, the Trans-Tasman Race. Beginning on the 27th of February, the race across the ditch begins with a staggered start on Sydney Harbour. The cannon fires in pursuit style, with yachts starting the race over 3 days. Competitors will then round the northern tip of New Zealand to finish together in Auckland at the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron, home of the America's Cup. Competitors will celebrate in style in the City of Sails. Entries close 9th of January 2026. Be part of the Trans-Tasman Yacht Race as a new ocean classic begins.
And that's interesting, Peter, because as Evie mentioned, everyone is designed to finish at the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron at the same time. I think that happens in the Transpac, doesn't it?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
They start at staggered times, and try to get them to Hawaii all at once, but it doesn't quite work out that way. But it's a good innovation, really good thing to keep the interest in the race. And the smaller boats obviously start first, and the big ones will start last. But talking about that race, there was a race earlier in the year in October that Lucky, the boat that's doing so well in this Hobart race, raced across the Tasman from Sydney to Auckland, averaging 20 knots. And a phenomenal performance, averaging 20 knots. And to average 20 knots, you've got to be doing 25s, 28s, 30 knots. And boy, they put the foot down, they rode a weather system across all the way. And that was a phenomenal time.
Well, URM Group has already said they are starting in this inaugural CYCA Trans-Tasman race, and URM is, of course, doing very well in this year's race with the Johnson brothers on board. They've dominated everything. They won the Flinders Island race, they won the Bird Island race, they won the Australian Maxi Championship, and also the Solus Big Boat Challenge. So URM Group is going to be one of the starters in this inaugural Trans-Tasman, designed to attract overseas sailors as well from other countries, because it fits in nicely with the Northern Hemisphere calendar. So I think that's something that's going to really evolve.
Well, I hope so. It'll be terrific for the club, and it was in vogue a number of years ago. There was used to be a race from Auckland to Sydney, and that attracted all the big boys like Astor and Solo. They did those races. The Halversons did those races. Don Mickleborough did on Southerly, but it died for whatever reason, and now that was from Auckland to Sydney coming west. This one is going east. So, yeah, it's got a lot of potential.
Well, they've got 21 on board, apparently, on URM Group. Maybe it's 20. They were going to take 21, but Bill Young, the former Wallaby prop, didn't enjoy being dismasted last year, just after midnight on URM Group. So they've sent him an offer just before the race, but he declined. The publican from Sydney, Billy Young.
Don't blame him, looking at the weather.
But they're certainly doing very well at the moment and desperate for this overall victory on URM. There's another interesting boat here, the XX Factor. And I think you'll be very interested to find out about the makeup of this crew, because I think the crew is 9 all up. Maybe it's 10. I may not be accurate on that. But it's only one male on board. Lucky man.
I'm here on the XX Factor with 3 of the 10 crew going to Hobart this year. Firstly, Janet, I hear that you do a lot of the organising on board and got the crew together. Can you tell me a little bit about your sailing story and how you got the XX Factor together for this year's 80th?
I started sailing 20 years ago as an adult. It's one of those things that I always wanted to do, and this is my 3rd boat that I've skippered and owned. And yeah, this is my first offshore boat.
In terms of women in sailing, one of the reasons I sort of, in a way, pushed Janet to become a skipper rather than just generic crew on various boats was because not a lot of women get the opportunity to own their own boats or skipper their own boats. This is the 3rd boat that Janet's had, but she wanted to do offshore, and she's done very well with offshore so far. Hopefully do well in this race as well and survive the race. But no, in terms of just me being on board, I'm just part of the crew, and they're a great bunch of competent women.
Yeah, it's a fantastic story for the 80th Rolex Sydney Hobart to have 9 women on board and 1 male, and we wish you all the best to get down to Hobart.
Your XX Factor is the former winner, 1995. She won as Terra Firma, designed by Murray Burns and DeVell Company. They designed a lot of boats, and that's Ian Murray, and they're currently 23 nautical miles southeast of Ulladulla. Still a long way to go, 512 miles still to go, but they're still out there and still slugging away.
Yes, well, before we go this afternoon, we'll be having a good look at the fleet to see where the main bulk of the fleet is, and particularly those the tail-enders as well, and some of those smaller tail-enders are certainly still in the hunt for the overall prize, Peter. But again, we mentioned this morning the RYCT and also the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia is greatly indebted to Tas Ports, who've been a tremendous supporter of this race. I think they conduct something like 95% of the freight that comes out of Tasmania. So well done, Tas Ports. And there's the scene here at the 80th Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race Village. People enjoying the, I wouldn't say they're enjoying the cold wind at the moment. It's quite breezy out there, Peter, so the numbers are down a little bit, but it certainly will be a high of activity over the next few days. It's quite a chilly temperature here in Hobart, and we were well rugged up in our Helly Hansen wind jackets. They're fleece lined, but indoors, Evie Hasseldine, now she is a fashion lady. She loves her fashion, and she's going to enjoy this little piece. Over to you, Evie.
Yeah, thanks, Gordon. I'm here in the race village, as you said. It's not so busy just yet, but anticipation is building. It is cold, much colder than what we had in Sydney. The wind's picked up this afternoon, so you might want to visit the Helly Hansen tent where you can pick yourself up one of these wind jackets. I've got the insulator puffer jacket on. I like the navy colour, as you said, bit of a fashion person myself. One of my personal favourites is the cream fleece, the Polartec fleece, the Helly Hansen Polartec fleece. You can get your usual spray jackets, more variety of colours. Behind me, hats, key rings, bags, visors, and the Polartec, as you said, comes inside the spray jacket. That's a great feature for the cold Tasmanian weather, and we won't be able to get quite over there because it's so busy inside the Helly Hansen tent, but you can get many more race shirts with the races on the front of the shirt. You've got the 80th insignia on all of the bags and shirts, and the tent is open from 9 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. every day that the race village is open. So come down and grab yourself something warmer for the cooler weather, and a t-shirt for when it gets warmer at the end of the race.
Now, Evie, James Bury from Sale Media, he's going to spend a lot of time out on the River Derwent. It's going to be very chilly out there. He was complaining to me this morning that he hasn't got a jacket. Are you able to speak to the manager and see what you can work out for James Bury from Sale Media?
We'll have to find Jimmy Bury a jacket, a beautiful Helly Hansen jacket in good time, Gordo. I don't have anything prepared just yet, but maybe the green colour would look good for him.
Okay, well, speak to the manager, see what you can do, and we might even show a shot of him in his new jacket.
You might be able to autograph it for him, Gordon.
Oh, no, he doesn't want my autograph, he wants your autograph, Peter. Now, this is something that Peter Shipway doesn't know about. We're going to spring this on him, but it is a special race for Dad and Mum, his wife Jo, and especially for the Shipway family. I'm not going to say any more, but let's find out what's around the corner.
I'm here with Grace Shipway, daughter of Peter Shipway, who is doing her first ever Hobart on Love and War. Love and War's done 21 Hobarts and has won 3, but you're the first female crew on board since its first race in the 70s.
That's right.
How is that for you?
Oh, it's an absolute honour. Very grateful for Simon Kurtz and the crew for being so welcoming, being the first female. But yeah, feel absolutely honoured. Looking forward to it.
Do you have anything to say to your dad now following in his footsteps?
Dad, I hope I've made you very proud, and looking forward to giving you a big hug on Constitution Dock.
Those petals as a tribute to the 15 victims of that terrible tragedy at Bondi on December 15. Peter, I can see a little tear in your eye. I feel like giving you a big hug.
Oh, that was lovely.
But tell us about Grace's sailing career.
Well, she grew up at Vaucluse Amateur 12-foot Sailing Club, where I was involved.
That's where you started with your father, Lionel.
Yeah, with Sabos and 12-foot skiffs, and then Grace started there in a little Sabo. I pushed her off the beach and terrorised her around in a little speedboat, told her to pull the sail on or let it off, or push it up or push it down, and as a lot of fathers do. And anyway, she graduated into a Sabo of her own, and then into a Flying 11, and then every Boxing Day for the last 10 years she said to me, I want to go to Hobart. She says that on Boxing Day. I said, look, you just can't walk on a boat. She said, well, you know Mark Richards. I said, yeah. She said, well, can you ring Rico and ask if I can go on Wild Oats? I said, listen, hang on. That's like trying to drive a Formula One motor car. You just can't do that. But anyway, this year she harassed me again, not quite the right word, but she asked me again. And I said, look, you've got to start early. And I asked Simon Kurtz, and I said, look, Simon, we're good friends, but if you say no, I'd quite understand the situation. To take Grace, and he took him about 3 seconds to say yes, you can go, and there was room on the boat. They're going, normally they race with 10, sometimes they race with 11, so she became the 11th crew, and she did some of the lead-up races. She did Cabbage Tree, she did the classic regattas on the harbour, and here she is now out there thrashing away towards Bass Strait. I don't know whether she'll be happy with me now, but anyway, she's out there, and let's hope she'll get a good result.
She's on the best heavy weather boat.
Well,
out
it is.
there
It's a lovely
size,
boat. It's
yeah.
a terrific crew. It's Stephen McCullum is the skipper. Simon's not on board, Simon Kurtz, nor his son Philip, who skippered the boat last year. Philip's wife was due to have a baby on Christmas Day. She had a baby on Christmas Eve, a lovely granddaughter for Simon and a daughter for Philip. So Stephen McCullum, former Commodore of the Royal Yacht Club of Tasmania, he's the skipper. And Paddy Broughton, who owns Keel too, he's the navigator. But it's a really good crew, solid crew. They've been with the boat a long time. It's a solid boat. So to do your first Hobart, I couldn't think of a better boat or a better crew, but certainly thanks to Simon Kurtz.
Well, talking of the weather at the moment, this is an opportune time to cross back to Evie, who's here at Kings Pier, with Vito Ferromans. Vito's a very keen and accomplished offshore racer, and I'd like them to talk about the conditions and also some of the tactics. So Evie, an Olympic sailor, with Vito Ferromans.
Yeah, that's right, Gordon. We're here in the race village, and behind us the River Derwent with relatively flatter waters than probably what they're expecting offshore. It's still windy though. Vito, what are the sailors expecting offshore that we don't see here?
Yes, so the southerly breeze that the competitors are experiencing offshore is really coming into Hobart. So we're getting a bit of a glimpse of what life is like offshore. The sailors have been sailing upwind for just over 24 hours. Bad news, they're going to have to keep going for a little while longer. Good news, there is a bit of a change in breeze coming. That is going to come through a high pressure system, so a bit more variable and lighter breeze. That's going to be over the next 24 hours or so. It can be a bit particularly hard to navigate through, but there is that good change coming. But yeah, fantastic outlook for the competitors so far. A bit more tough going, to go for them.
Yeah, as you said, it is different offshore than what we see here, and one of those elements is the tactics and decision making that the crews have to make on board. You've had intel live from boats. What are the yachts doing out there to jostle for position as they come closer to the finish line?
So most of the competitors are trying to play those shifts. You know, the breeze doesn't always come from the same direction, so playing the shifts is really critical. The navigator on board Celestial V70, the current race leader, has shared a bit of his dark secrets. He is really looking at that high pressure system, how it's moving across the racetrack and how to navigate that as quickly as possible. So according to the Celestial V70 crew, that is going to be really instrumental and could potentially decide the outcome of this race.
And have you had any intel on the boat-on-boat tactics? Are they close to anyone else? Have they made critical decisions in the early part of the race?
Not particularly with Celestial V70, but Aragon, a Dutch boat, a Dutch entrant, had a fantastic tacking duel overnight with Smuggler along the New South Wales coast. So that's really fantastic to see the international competitors and, of course, that really well-established Sydney sailor battle it out, in this Hobart race. Really fantastic stuff.
And that's something that we'll hear more about as the boats arrive on the dock, and we'll get you those insights from the navigators and from the tacticians on board on what they've done out at sea for the viewers to have some insights.
Thanks very much, Evie, and some fascinating insight there from Vito.
Indeed. So why we keep saying that little boats or lower rating boats could figure, and following on what Vito said there, is that the breeze is slowly going to go to the east or to the northeast even. So the big boats, the leaders, will not have that nor'easter as long as the smaller boats. So they've been on the wind all the time, and the smaller boats, they'll be coming behind them, bringing up the nor'easter and travelling downwind where the bigger boats have been travelling upwind in the same piece of water. So that may change the handicap situation dramatically in the next 24 to 36 hours. It's a maybe, like all weather is, it's a bit of a maybe, but at the moment, Celestial V70 firmly in the control of the handicap situation.
But there's a lot to happen in Storm Bay and the Derwent, as we know. That's where races are won and lost.
Yeah.
Peter, let's go to the tracker now and look at the latest line honours standings as the leaders are well into Bass Strait.
Yeah, okay. Well, here we have it. They're over 100 miles south of Gabo, so well into the Strait. That's 301 miles to go for Master Lock Comanche. Then we go down to Law Connect. She's hanging on. She's only about 4 or 5 miles behind, and so as Master Lock Comanche won't want to stub a toe, and Law Connect will be right up her exhaust pipe. But, you know, 5 miles makes really little difference, as we've seen in the past, if you're at Tasman Island that close, and certainly coming into the river. So at no means any way assured that Master Lock Comanche is going to get there first. Then Scallywag and Lucky almost together. They're about 10 miles adrift there. And then we've got Palm Beach 11. She's about 30 odd miles behind. So as I said earlier today, that not suited for this tough upwind conditions, and they've just put this boat back together. So it's not a surprise to see her so far back in these tough conditions. But we've got a bit of breaking news, I think, Gordon.
We have indeed, Peter. You can see URM Group there, 7th on line honours, desperate to win this race. They were dismasted last year at midnight, just off Wollongong, and we've just heard that they are out of the race. URM Group has entered Bass Strait, but clearly there's been a problem. We don't know what the problem is, but URM Group, one of the heavy favourites for the overall honours, is the 11th retirement in the 80th edition of the Rolex Sydney Hobart. So that's very bad news, heartbreaking news for URM Group. Anthony Johnson, his 4 brothers, a very sound and strong team. They've been dominating in the Audi Centre Sydney Blue Water Classic, but the Australian Maxi champion URM Group is out. So they were in 7th place online, Peter.
Yeah, that's a shame. It's apparently ring frame damage, which is big frames that go in the front of the boat, forward of the mast, and all the crew are okay. That's the good news. The ring frame supports the hull. It's an integral part of the design of the boat, but with this slamming hour after hour, minute after minute, day after day, there's a lot of pounding on these boats, and these boats are flying out of the waves at probably 10 or 11 knots and landing, you know, smashing down onto almost like solid concrete. The noise is just sickening. So that's what's happened, a damaged ring frame. It often happens on these high-tech boats. And here's them earlier in the race, but unfortunately it's all over for the 2nd year in a row.
Yeah, that's shocking news there for URM Group, who've been one of the pace setters, and their 21 strong crew are all okay. That's the good news. Peter, let's now have a look at the IRC standings. That's the overall handicap standings, just to see who's leading the way. But as you suggested, Sam Haynes, the Commodore of the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia, in terrific position again to maybe make it a 3rd overall victory under his banner.
Yeah, we'll see. Again, we keep saying so far out it's hard to predict a handicap winner, but all she can do is be at the top of the leaderboard at the moment. Still have 340 odd miles to go to the finish, not halfway, 64 miles south of Gabo Island. Then MRV, a beautiful Freres 66 that was built for Stan Edwards back in 1996. A Herman Freres design. She's 2nd, very strong upwind boat. And then Callisto, another of the favourites, a TP52 or a Pack 52. James Murray, a New Zealander, he's an American, but racing under the flag of the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron. They've bounced up to 3rd on handicap. Stu Ballantyne on board on a live 2 years ago, and he as well as Justin Ferris and Dean Barker, the America's Cup winner from New Zealand.
I quoted you on air on Channel 9 actually, and I said that Peter Shipway feels that Callisto is the boat to beat on handicap. That was 3 weeks ago, so a long way to go, as you say.
3 weeks ago.
A long way to go, but
well, there's a long way to go. But that's the overall position on IRC. We'll have a quick look at the PHS handicap,
yes,
which is the performance handicap.
Very quickly, Peter.
Aletha, Maritimo, and Wild Oats. That's the top three there.
Okay, there you go. Well, yeah, you can certainly stay with us. We're going to be here 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. every day, bringing you all the latest. But make sure you follow on Rolex SydneyHobart.com. That's the website. Everything you want to know there, the latest from the boats at sea, including footage and some outstanding writing. Di Pearson and her team, Steve Detra, and also Greta doing a fabulous job. And you can follow us, CAYCA TV, on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. So it's all covered here from the Race Village in Hobart. And there's the scene.
Keep up to date with all the action at the 2025 Rolex Sydney Hobart with live updates from the Hobart Race Village. Watch the official CYCA TV YouTube channel from 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. daily. Coverage starts Saturday the 27th of December. Watch the live finish for line honours from the River Derwent, plus all the excitement of the Hobart Village with exclusive content as it happens.
Yes, Peter, we'll wrap up then. 11 retirements. We've got our leaders there. It's looking like Master Lock Comanche, but a long way to go with Law Connect in second place on line honours. But yeah, it's that latest news has certainly sent a shudder.
Very disappointing for you,
very
RM.
disappointing.
But another tough night ahead. I think around about midnight it's predicted to ease and soften off and then get into the east. So I think there'll be some sailors that are very welcome to that news if that transpires. But still a few hours ahead of them in tough conditions. But it's one of the tough Hobarts, that's for sure.
And we'll leave you with these shots of the Royal Yacht Club of Tasmania, the host club for the finish of the race. Some 260 volunteers have been working since the 1st of January in 2025 to make sure that everything goes smoothly, and they do just a wonderful job. My first promotion from Sydney with the ABC was to Hobart, and I joined the Royal Yacht Club of Tasmania straight away, and I received my 50-year tie last year. But they're a great bunch of people and they do a fantastic job, and they are all volunteers. So until our report at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning on day 3, that's goodbye then from the Race Village here for the 80th Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race.
This has been a Hype production